Did you did you get my Google Doc?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was worried that I yap too much and it was like unhelpful.
No, no.
Okay.
The anything you say can and will be used for you, right? So you can't say too much in that kind of a situation. Like anything you say is just helpful.
Okay. Those
Um,
were my thoughts too.
yeah.
Hello, Cyrus. Hello, True to Cats. Hello, hello.
Yeah, and so hello to everybody on Chess Dojo. We're doing a lesson here with Anushka, aka Bloodqueen, um, and she is streaming it on her channel as well. And she is a student who sometimes does a lot of schoolwork and sometimes does a lot of chess. So,
Yeah, that's accurate.
yeah. So this is going to be a first lesson. My goals for today, Anushka, are to sort of like work up kind of a profile for you of what I think some of your sort of strengths and weaknesses might be and what's going on with your chess. Um, and then maybe from that we can figure out what would uh, what would be kind of like inspiring stuff to spend your training time on.
Okay.
How to make the best use of your training and playing times.
Okay. Oh, I see your okay. I see your profile because I pulled up your stream so that I can see your chat too.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I had a lot of work today, so I haven't made your profile in advance.
Okay.
But we are going to get to it. 1d4 is white. I've played through 6 games from the North American Open and read your answers to my questions.
Mhm.
So that's the start I got on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So this thing here is not just in chess. I think it's in all of your life, I'm guessing. You are an ambitious person with high standards for like what is a good game or what is like a good rate of progress or et cetera, et cetera.
I don't know about high standards. I definitely maybe like slightly higher than average. But
Okay.
I also think I give myself a lot of grace,
Oh yeah.
like more than other chess players that I know.
Nice. Nice. Okay, I've got one person saying that my audio is a bit low, and that might be because I'm looking at my second monitor, but my mic is on this other side here.
Ah, yes.
So let's just
Hello,
hope
Walker. Hello, West.
maybe like this will be a little bit better.
Okay.
Otherwise, I can turn it up a little bit.
Mhm.
So this North American Open, was that last December or a year ago December?
That was this December. So I only started playing over the board really over the summer.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
So it's very recent.
Yeah.
And
There's not like a huge like wealth of material to work from as far as like high quality chess games that I've played,
mhm.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, it's actually quite okay because 6 games is actually plenty for me in general.
Okay.
So and yeah, and you've got some others as well, so
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
So
sure there will be some game analysis, but this is, yeah, I'll say it just for my chat. This is David Pruess. He's an international master. I'll say it again later, but he's from Chess Dojo, which I am an affiliate of. That's I've showed it on stream like quite a few times because I like
mhm.
looking at my heat map.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, there you go. I mean, don't look at my heat map right now because it'll be better later, but
Yeah, yeah.
I like looking at it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you have a heat map for your school studies, your lab work?
N- no,
No.
I mean, I just try to. So I'm like not an employee. I was an employee over the summer because I worked there full time. But over the school year, you can do it like on and off for like academic credit or like it's weird. The hours are weird because like I have to like go to school and stuff. So I just
Mhm.
like go to lab as like my 9 to 5, and then like if I have to dip out to go to a class or something, I'll like leave to go to class, and I'll just come back. So my whole like school academic life is contained within a 9 to 5, and then everything I do after is like mostly chess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, folks, I've adjusted my volume somewhat. What do you think now? Is that going to be good? You've got like some super mic or something, Anushka, I think, because you come through
Sorry.
really loud and clear to me.
This is a heat map. I'm trying to show people what the heat map looks like.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think it's. I'll show them later. Yeah.
Is that okay, folks? Um, the first thing I want to do is like finish typing in some of my thoughts. Still very quiet. What's wrong?
I wonder if I can hear it on your stream.
I can figure out what's wrong.
You could also probably just turn myself down or turn me down because yeah, I'm pretty loud.
Yeah,
Hello, bouncing across.
I can, but it's weird that my thing would not be good.
It's coming through very clear over the call.
Right.
If that helps.
Good. Yeah, it's the right mic. And I'm seeing like nearly full bars on it, but okay. Maybe I need to go into system settings. Everybody's saying I'm very quiet. So there's definitely a problem.
Here. I moved my mic like slightly further away from my face.
Okay, sounds, output, input. Oh yeah, it's been turned down like way down on my system.
No.
Okay, folks, how about that? That's going to be loud, right?
That was great.
That didn't change anything for you, did it?
I think it changed your max like slightly, but I'll just like turn it down slightly.
Right, but
David sounds good here. Yeah.
But for our system, yeah, that fixed it. Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. Normally it's more like PCs than Macs that change their settings without you touching them, but this time, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the help, everybody. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to finish typing up some notes here about 6 games of Anushka's that I just looked at before we started. And then we may play through some of those games or play through some of her other games. You sent me games from like another tournament from the previous quarter and then some games from a weekly event, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what I just started doing.
Yeah. Is it easy to grab these games and move them to chess.com boards?
You could probably copy the whole study PGN and then paste it into a classroom if you wanted, because you can have multiple games in a classroom, I'm pretty sure.
Let me see.
I can do it
so I
as
can
well.
just grab the study PGN like that. Yeah. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Copy PGN. Then if I go over here, open my analysis board on chess.com.
Okay. Didn't say that.
Yeah, there we've got a game. Okay, so if I go here and turn off the profile for a minute, below it, folks, you'll see the chess.com board, and there is a game of Anushka's. Here was like one thing that stood out to me slightly. Anushka was in this position. You didn't take your pawn back on c5.
Yeah, I missed it. This was a terrible game.
Yeah, and I took that to mean that you did not see that against b4 you could take on f2 with check.
Yeah. You know, the interesting thing is before I played Queen A5, I saw like that I would get to this position and I saw that b4 was possible. But I was like, oh, like I probably have something there, so I'll just play Queen A5 anyway. And then I like re-looked at it, and then the second time I looked at it, I like hallucinated and thought like I didn't realize that I could take it with check on f2. So I just convinced myself not to play it.
Yeah. Don't feel bad. It stood out as uncharacteristic compared to the other games, you know.
All right.
Like I was surprised. I was like, huh? What? That's not something that she can't calculate based on, you know, what I'd seen in the first 5 games from that tournament.
Yeah. Oh, wait, is this a classroom or something that I could look at too? Because I think my chat's complaining that they can't see the game.
Okay. It's an analysis board, and perhaps I can move it to a...
I can also pull it into my own analysis board, probably.
Yeah. You're also a chess.com streamer, right? Or do you stream
Yeah,
Lee Chess?
yeah,
Chess.com.
just chess.com.
Okay. So yeah, there must be some way to move it into a chess.com classroom. Let's do
Also,
that.
I wonder if I think my North American games I might have put into, yeah, this game is in the Chess Dojo. If you want to look at it in Chess Dojo, I might have like put some comments in there. Maybe not for this game specifically, but for other games.
Okay. I am allowed to use Chess Dojo on stream.
Yeah, thank God.
Classroom. Let's go a
So
new
it's this
room.
game chat.
And then I'm going to add the game here. All right, so now I've got the game in a room. What's your username on chess.com?
Just Bloodqueen, no extra letters or anything.
Nice. And you have some kind of a pink animal holding a heart?
Yes.
All right, I've sent you an invite to a classroom here, which looks like it shows up fine. Accepted.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Okay, so here we've got, here we've got a classroom, and we can play through moves. Okay, before we get into moves, though, let me put together my other thoughts from the 6 games I saw. So you play the Caro consistently with black. You play d4 consistently as white. Nobody played d4 against you in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to see what you play. But is it Queen's Gambit declined?
I play Grinfeld, but I don't really like it. I also I'm trying to not play the Caro anymore. I'm trying to play the Najdorf, or I'm just Sicilian anything. So I have this like list of things that I hated about my chess that I wrote like right after this tournament. So I can like add that onto the end of the document, and you can see how much I hate the Caro.
The Caro's one of the main things you hate about chess.
I guess, yeah. I hated the positions that I got because if it was an advanced, I never was interested in learning the theory, so I just didn't care about the positions that I got. And then like if it was an exchange, I would get like really boring positions that I didn't like either. So I just didn't like anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greenfield is not dry.
How do you feel about draws?
I don't get them ever.
Right.
I win or lose usually.
Yeah. And how do you feel about them? All the
Well,
draws you've ever had.
they're better than losing. Like I think I would rather draw than lose, but I don't think I've ever like felt myself wanting to play for a draw in any position, like even if I'm worse.
Even if you're worse, you're not motivated by, I think there might be some way to get a draw here.
If it's like I'm totally lost, but like I can get like rook pawn and he has the wrong colored bishop, then like then I'm looking for a draw.
Right.
But if it's like a complicated middle game position,
right.
Usually I'm like, oh, maybe I can like counterplay and checkmate. But like
Right.
if I don't get that, then I'm losing.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't really play for draws or get them often. Yeah. Yeah, so the first thing that I noticed from the answers you gave me in the sort of self-description questions, right, versus the games that I saw, was that from your self-description, I would have expected more sort of solid and careful kind of play, but your play is very aggressive, right? So you kind of because like what I focus on first here in terms of what you enjoy is this positional strategic question, right? And the idea of like squeezing someone and then clicking on your favorite game first, right? And your favorite game was sort of a positional Catalan where you got the space advantage with c5, and then you're able to access your opponent's weak squares. So I was expecting from that maybe something more solid. Now I say expecting, I know that people's profiles of themselves are often not quite true, which is one of the great things about talking with someone else about what is your chess. You can find out things. Um, and then what I found was somebody who plays very much closer to how I used to play, which is very, very aggressive. And maybe funnily enough, my first interaction with this idea of what's your sense of your own chess and what does somebody else think is I'd been playing for maybe 2 years or something like that. And then I was with my chess coach and I was saying like, oh yeah, like for some reason it came up. I said, yeah, I'm like this like great positional player who sometimes, gets swindled or miscalculates at some point. And he was like, what? You have no sense of positional chess. And you're just like very practical and calculating lots of moves and, pouncing on your opponent when you get a chance. And I had no idea, you know. So I wonder if your skills do or don't match, and I'll look at a few more games, but I wonder if your skills and the way you're playing do or don't match with how you imagine that you want to play or imagine that you are playing.
Yeah.
Because there is that fear of symmetry, and I see you looking for imbalances and really playing very complicated moves, actually.
Okay.
And actually, if I grab this game, that's no wait, let me first find the game I want to show. There's one. Let's see. Okay, so a game.
I will say there's a lot of your chess that I relate to, at least like when I've heard Chess Dojo talk, because I've like consumed a lot of like Chess Dojo content and like YouTube content in general. And like Jesse will make fun of you for being like a maximalist, and Hayden makes fun of me for the same thing. Like there's a lot of like I like always try to like maximize, and then it like ends up with me like throwing away an advantage or something. So I remember I heard that and I was like, oh, I relate to that.
Yeah. So let me add this one. Okay, so here's a game where you're white, and
Oh yeah.
you get this Banco Gambit, and I think you probably don't have like a ton of moves memorized in the Banco.
No.
You're just kind of doing something.
Yeah.
Oh, chat can't see it. Yeah, let me switch from the profile to the board. All right, so this knight c3 line is a line that I've played. It's
Okay.
a somewhat dubious, hyper-aggressive variation. Because the main way it goes is if black takes on b5. Right? They're threatening to play b4 or draw your knight away from the center, or if you take back with your knight, well, then you play knight b1, knight c3, knight b5, knight back to c3, right? And at a simple level, potentially, I mean, people always play e4 here. It's the point of the line. But if you played knight takes b5, bishop a6, knight c3, then you would just sort of transpose a main line because you moved the knight back and forth and they captured, right? So the independent line is kind of like a b5, e4, b4, knight b5, knight e4. Kind of offering this pawn sack, and the idea is queen e2 with knight d6 checkmate if the knight moves away. Anyway, this line here is very, very aggressive, and part of the way you can see that it's aggressive is the knight has no way back. Like there's all bridges are burned for that knight, right? a3, c3, d4. And given that in chess, if you lose a knight, you're probably losing the game against reasonable opposition. Basically, you've burned all your bridges along with the knight's bridges. So this line is like hyper aggressive. So yeah, and then you play a shocking move, one or two moves after this, f4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So f4 is like shockingly aggressive because, let's see. So you have a choice in the opening between developing pieces as quickly as possible to whatever's available, or trying to maximize along the way, like put every piece on the best square possible, grab space. If your opponent gives you a chance to pick up like a positional advantage, like you grab it, right? And so everybody has their own sense of like how much are they trying to get away with, how much are they trying to take advantage of something their opponent did that they don't think is great. And then, of course, position by position, even the greediest player, if you show them a position with no pieces developed and their opponent already has 6 pieces developed, they'll develop a piece rather than trying to, create a pawn structure advantage or something like that, right? So everybody has, some variation. But here, when you play f4, that's very, very aggressive and greedy for space, right? Compared to, you may have a sense that a more typical move would be knight f3, or taking on a6, or a4. If the plan is to block the b file with an outpost on b5, you could already play a4. And normally where you'll see a4 come up is, honestly, normally they'll first play knight f3. And then if black plays like bishop e7 or g6, bishop g7 or something like that, you don't want to play bishop e2, pawn takes, bishop takes b5. So you play like another tempo move like a4, sort of waiting on it. But ultimately, at some point, the bishop on f1 just has to move. And so, you get some situation like this. Eventually is kind of normal for this kind of line. Now, the thing is, because your opponent's already played e6 looking to trade on d5, the f4 move is not even really supporting e5, right? Because you have to assume that at any point your opponent could play ed, ed.
Yeah.
Right? And get this typical structure here. So the f4 move in this case, it doesn't even match with anything else that's specifically going to happen in the next phase of the game. It's just like the move that an overly aggressive player plays. Someone who just can't get enough space. Which is me. Like I'm, like when somebody hears 4 pawn attack against the King's Indian or something like that, right? And you think like that, some people think like that's too many pawns, right? And other people are like, why not? Why not? I'll take everything. And before I'd ever met another chess player, when I was just playing at home with my brother, one of the first chess schemes that I thought of was putting every pawn on the 4th rank. A4, B4, C4, D4. Just line them all up. And I was like, that seems really good because then you attack every square in the 5th rank and your opponent can't move anything. And once I bring up all my pieces behind those pawns, I will advance them one by one all to the 5th rank. And eventually, like, my opponent would just be suffocating. And then once I got into chess and learned that, okay, you can't quite do that. Like, there's holes in your structure and you also have to move out your pieces and time is a factor. But I still gravitated towards things like 4 pawns attack and Austrian attack against the Pirts, just like moving the F pawn anytime that you can. And anytime I block like my C pawn or my F pawn with a knight, I'm kind of grimacing inwardly. Like, oh shit, there goes that opportunity to like really just push my opponent off the board. It's going to be much slower now.
Yeah.
Do you have a little feeling like that about your C pawns and your F pawns, or?
Yeah, so I used to play the Jabava London actually, and I didn't used to study any chess at all. Like I only like would play Blitz on chess.com. I had no idea really like what the point of chess was. And then like as soon as I learned like a little bit of strategy and like about like I never put my knight in front of my c pawn again. And I like the average back and I like all sorts of like pushing my pawn stuff. So that's a good read.
Yeah. So and then you'll see that this game, like the pawn on f4, just hurts you the entire game basically, right?
It's all true.
And you do another me kind of move here of like b3, just saying like, sure, like you can make any trades you want, black. I'm just going to keep like taking over more and more space with every trade, right? Like your b pawn will become the c pawn, will become a d pawn again. And you're just going to squish them. Some people would have been afraid to put the bishop on c4 because of knight b6, right? They would have just put the bishop on e2 or d3, something like that. So b3 takes. You're not super greedy about pawns, though, are you?
No, not really.
Because if you were more into pawns, you might have taken on a6 once the knight came off b8, with the idea that now if their bishop goes to a6, you can trade your bishop on f1 with a tempo, right? And you're trading pieces with an extra pawn towards the end game. And if they don't take on a6, your bishop could go to b5 or something. So here, don't you feel like your e-pawn's a little bit
Yeah,
loose?
I was worried about it.
Yeah.
I was not comfortable for most of this game.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
An
Yeah.
interesting thing about this game is I think in most positions in this game, if you took the pawn on f4 and put it on f2, it would improve your position.
Yeah, that's true. I will also say like the sacking my like when I decided to start playing the Catalan is also when I learned about like the Queen's Gambit and like why it's like them taking a pawn and holding on to the pawn can be bad for them. And I think like that also like got it in my head that like, oh, I want to like sack pawns for like something positional and like improve something and play like that.
Yeah, you want to have free pieces. You want to have the positional advantages.
Yeah, the center.
The center, the
Yeah.
space, yeah. Okay, so here, like this e5 move, one might say, oh, this is like one good thing about the pawn on f4, but actually with the pawn on f2, the move is equally good, right? You just break your opponent's pawn structure, you split their pawns, right? And you can take on e5 with your knight or your queen or whatever. You don't need the f pawn for this e5 to be a very good move against this structure. Now they play knight d5, and unfortunately your knight on c3 is not defended. What you would love to play in this position is pawn takes d6, right?
Yeah.
To split their pawns for good.
Yeah.
I think in the game you traded the knight, and so they got a new d pawn, right? And then their pawns are still connected. So
Yeah, I remember specifically in this part, like the last two moves, and then the like before all of this like change in pawn structure happened. Yeah, like this whole thing. I talked to Zefcat about this game specifically, and like she had a lot to say about this, and I'm forgetting it all now, but I'm trying to remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, one thing is it's possible that even with the knight hanging, maybe you have pawn takes d6 with the idea of knight takes c3, queen e6 check. There's some small chance that works out. But another thing that would, in theory, be desirable would be to play something like bishop b2, defending the knight here, instead of trading, right? Because the e-pawn's, like, you've made an effort to make the e-pawn not a good pawn. Like, you didn't want to play e5 if you have to just play knight takes d5, right? If that's the case, then you weren't yet ready for e5, and it would be better to just play, bishop b2, a4, keep strengthening your game for now.
I think I didn't care so much if there was a weak e pawn. I was just like the e6 square is weak, so like whether there's a pawn there or not, I'm gonna get my queen there, and then I win because my queen's on e6. That's like as far as I thought.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you were thinking like a little bit confidently here about the weakness.
I added like a list of stuff to the end of the document that I gave to you, which is like what I wrote after I hit 1900 on chess.com, and like these are like things that I think are my weaknesses, and then I think I say like I delude myself into thinking I'm winning the entire time at every game, but I lose a lot of half points because I'm not looking to draw, and then if I can't delude myself into thinking that the position's better to me, I just like roll over and die.
Yeah.
So
like this could have been my profile, when I'd been playing for anywhere between 2 and 10 years maybe. For about like an 8-year period. That would have probably been my profile too. Exactly what you wrote about the evaluation. Undo that weird thing. So that makes sense. And we were just talking about this recently, that like a certain amount of optimism is helpful. Right? Like Kramnik is a player who was not optimistic. He was just like perfectly realistic almost, and it like hindered his results a little bit because he would see defenses for his opponents. Like he would be like, it doesn't feel like I should be crushing here, where like you or I might get like really excited, like, oh, this move, we're probably just killing them, right? He'd be like, I don't know if I should really be completely winning here yet. And he would look and he'd find a defense for the opponent and then not go for, some aggressive option. Which if he'd played, other people weren't as good as him and they would have, lost to it probably, right? But he just didn't have the same level of overconfidence that a lot of chess players do. So, but there's a question of how much optimism is good and how much becomes too much, right? Because you're completely cut off from any sense of the actual evaluation. There are some downsides to it.
Yeah.
But, some confidence is certainly good. Okay, so from this position, let me ask you something about your positional knowledge.
Oh God.
Yeah, this move,
Okay.
this move E5.
Hmm.
Does it improve or worsen any of the pieces? Like, does it change how good any of your knights or bishops or rooks or your opponent's knights or bishops or rooks? Does it change the prospects of any of the pieces?
Um, Not really. I guess like if I'm not really giving myself the e4 square because they can always put a pawn on uh d5, but
Mm-hmm.
then if they do that, then their pieces lose a square as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it improves any of my pieces though.
Okay. And your opponent's pieces?
Um, I mean, their bishop has more vision and they can get more control over the center because they can push d5 now. I am fixing a weakness though,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
temporarily, but no.
Which which piece gets more vision?
Their light squared bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious if you knew this. Basically, that bishop, you've got no bishop that can go on that diagonal to counter it.
Hmm.
So the juicier that diagonal gets, the better that piece becomes, sort of in like a general long-term prospect kind of way, right? So when your f
Yeah.
pawn can't go to f3, that improves that bishop, right? The fact that your f pawn's already on f4, and when
Mhm.
your e pawn moves forward as well, this guy is just amazing, basically.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so that's why e5 is very. That's one of the main reasons e5 is very committal. Is that you're improving their bishop for good. So if you're not achieving something, you're going to eventually pay for that bishop. Yeah. So, and here knight d5, bishop b2 I mentioned would be nice normally,
Hmm.
or even knight e4.
No,
But
I didn't want to hang the pawn, I guess. Bishop,
right,
maybe
exactly.
bishop
Here you
b2.
can't play bishop b2 because your f pawn would be hanging. If your pawn were on f2,
Yeah, yeah.
then bishop b2 would become more of a move. Here you could maybe have considered the move bishop d2, which does also perhaps hang the pawn, but a little more complicatedly. But most likely the e5 move was too soon, right? Because your opponent's fully developed and you're
Yeah.
not, and then you're
Yeah.
spending energy.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so then you got rook e1 attacking the bishop. And yeah, here, this is something that happens to me a lot. I'm kind of like flailing around with a couple of my pieces, but not everything works together, right? Like you're using this knight to try and cover the fact that you're not really placed to contest the e file or the f file at the moment.
Yeah. And the diagonal is
Right.
weak.
And not quite the diagonal. And, maybe if your pawn were on f2 in this position, maybe bishop b2 would be fine. Just
Yeah.
contesting the long diagonal, right? But you've got this stupid pawn you have to cover too, right? So I'm always finding myself in these situations because I'm playing lots of games where I've got pawns. You've got advanced pawns on b5 and f4, and the rest of your position's not developed to the same degree that your pawns are. So you're kind of like, oh, let me like try and plug this hole and that hole. And then there's
Yeah.
always this feeling like if I can just get one or two moves, I can like fix all this. I can bring it all together. I'll have time to play a4 so that pawn's better protected. I'll get my bishop
Yeah.
off of c1 so my rooks are defending each other. Like if I could just get some time.
Yeah.
And the better the opponents you face, the more they never give you that time. And you're sort of like scrambling and they just keep coming up with stuff. Like you'll start facing people who in positions like this will be playing moves like g5. They won't be playing like a standard move like d4 or rook e8 even, which might both be good moves.
Hmm.
But like the better and better the opponent, the more they start hitting you with like g5 by surprise, and then there's just like the tension's coming and you never catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you eventually win this game, right? Like you get the queenside pawns all the way through eventually.
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember correctly. Is like a little bit of a miracle because here obviously like we're suffering a lot with this F pawn, but resilient. You've got Queen E8, right? So you found a way to sort of get out of the pin that was growing on the E file, and you snuck out of the fact that your F pawn was hanging, right? And that's like exactly what my games used to look like. Like I'm getting away with it
yeah.
sometimes, maybe because I'm not yet playing against grandmasters, and then it's getting harder and harder to get away with it. Um, and then you find time to advance those things, and yeah, this part here now just becomes like crazy tactical, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't stop black's pawns and they can't stop yours. And here again, I recognize that you basically outcalculated in sort of just wild and concrete position.
That's interesting because I think my calculation is my weakest point.
But it's not as bad as you probably think.
Maybe the other stuff is worse than I think.
Yeah, so there you got that off. You got into the end game, and once you got that pawn, you were sailing home.
Mhm.
So yeah, this was a banco with the e6 from black. And to me, this game is like a very good example of a game that's kind of the opposite of your own like profile of yourself,
Oh, okay.
perhaps, right? Where like strategically, it's not that good, but then actually tactically, you get out of it
Hmm.
well in the end. But black had this nice bishop pair advantage, nice pawn center advantage. The move f4 was a mistake. The move e5 was a mistake. So there was like this like aggressive pawn pushing without having the positional backup for it.
Mm.
And from your profile, I would have thought more like, oh, you maneuver all your pieces until they're just right before you do anything, But no, here it was guns blazing.
Mm.
So let's call back
Maybe out of necessity. Like maybe this
necessity
is
making you calculate in that
yeah,
game,
like
or
maybe this is what my games are like out of necessity, and then the games that I like to learn from are the opposite.
yeah. I had a thought that you might not have a huge vocabulary of strategic ideas, and that's one of the reasons why you want like a really clear imbalance, so like I'm supposed to attack here, or I'm supposed to counterattack there, or they're going to attack me here.
Yeah.
Is that likely?
Probably. I started reading Reassess Your Chess, so I'm trying to learn more about imbalances,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of my thoughts on imbalances are yeah, very black and white, very
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, if you have this thing then you should be winning.
And do
It's
you
not.
find reassess your chess challenging, or easy,
Um
or just right?
the test problems I find challenging, but a lot of it is reinforcing things that I already know. Actually, I feel like I picked up a lot of my thoughts on this stuff and like imbalances and strategy from like watching Zefcat's content, which by the way, Zefcat, thank you for the raid. Because and like a lot of that is also what's like reiterated in Reassess Your Chess. So it's like stuff that I like learning about. Some of it
Mm-hmm.
is new though. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you like playing an endgame with a positional advantage? Is that fun?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like yeah, like bishop pair or like more advanced pawns or something like easy to understand for my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To those asking, isn't a banco with e6 a Blumenfeld? Um, if e6 is played in the first four moves, basically, then it's a Blumenfeld, right? But if you play the banco and one or two moves later, black chooses to play e6 to challenge the d5 pawn head on, which comes up in a fair number of variations of the banco, it's still a banco. But, it's using a Blumenfeld theme. This game definitely feels very Blumenfeld-y, but it is also still a banco.
Mhm.
Um, all right, so always seeking imbalances. Okay, currently reading Reassess Your Chess, which has a mix of reinforcing ideas she knows and exercises can be challenging. And probably some new ideas or not?
Yeah, definitely some new ideas. And it's all I like books like because it's all laid out in like a textbook kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So I can feel like I know the breadth of something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah.
Right. So you like to know there's these like 10 major imbalances or these like 6 different ways to think about the evaluation or
Yeah.
something like
Because
that.
the way that I like went about learning chess before, it was like, oh, I watched like a 10 YouTube video like deep dive on like knight versus bishop and like like playing that like minor piece endgame or something like that. And then I'm like really strong in like one thing, or like I'm really good at like one type of tactic, and
Mm-hmm.
then everything else feels like kind of weak and like I'm playing like under the level I think I should be playing at because I'm like, oh, I'm so good at queen versus rook. Like, why am I so bad at like, you know, like opposite colored bishop? So yeah, it's nice. It's nice the breadth that books give you.
Yeah. Well, so what I would recommend for you is a little bit different, is noticeably different than what I would recommend for somebody else at your rating level, but maybe it is more consistent with what I would recommend to somebody at your rating level who's played for as short a time as you, right? Um, so for anyone out there saying like, oh, if I'm here, should I do, what David suggests to Anushka? It's very specific. When you get into somebody's preferences and their games, and their personal development path, it is very much specific to the person. And Anushka's reached kind of like a 1900 level in less than a year, which is not normal. So, what I suggest for her is not necessarily normal. And she also wants to become a master, which not everybody is going to become. So, we're going to have like a somewhat aggressive or ambitious approach to what you're aiming for here. Um, let's talk a little bit about your burnout feeling before we make a plan.
Oh yeah.
When did you start feeling a bit burned out?
This just happens like every month or 2 months. I feel like it's like, I don't know, tied to like school and like hormones and like sleep. I feel like there's like something where like my body just tells me like you need a break from chess. Um,
Okay.
so usually it comes after I lose a lot of online rating, which I have, and I just need like a mental reset. So I tell myself like don't look at it for like 4 days.
Okay. And the part that leads to burnout, can it be the studying, or is it online blitz games that don't matter that much, or is it you lose your passion while playing like a slower game?
I think I just get this like brain fog sometimes, or like maybe I go too hard when I like can look at chess, and then when you look at a word for too long and it doesn't look like the word anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'll like look at a chessboard and like I don't see where the knights go normally. So I'm just like bad at chess, and then I'll be like talking to people and I'll like say stupid things, and I'll be like, God, you're so stupid. Like, why did you say that? Or I'll be like playing. I like streamed. I started streaming again because now I have more time because I'm not taking like as difficult classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I like finally like played Rapid Blitz Bullet on stream again after so long, and I'm so bad at it. And then I was like, God, you're so bad at everything. And then like those kind of feelings make me not want to look at it anymore because I hate looking at it and not feeling like I see things the way that I normally do.
Mm-hmm. So it's tied more to performance than just a general like fatigue or not having enough energy for your life. It's related to not having the results or the skill that you think you should.
Yeah, like not having the skill. Like if I was losing rating and I was like playing decent games, but I just like kept losing, I don't think I would care as much. But when I'm playing, I think like worse than I should. Like I feel like I normally play better, and then I'm playing worse, or I'm seeing less things, then that makes me
Yeah.
feel like burnt out.
And if you woke up tomorrow and had overnight started winning every game you ever played, right? I know that's pretty much every chess player's dream. Like tomorrow I'll just stop making any of the mistakes I've ever made before and There's no
Yeah.
particular reason that I won't win my next game and then the game after that and the one after that. So say that
Yeah.
happens to you and you're just winning every single game and all your ratings are going up, and you're studying. Do you think that you could experience this kind of burnout while on a winning streak?
Um, I don't think so. Not for studying,
Yeah.
because yeah, it's always like right after I hit um, like if I'm really close to some online goal, like when I was really close to 1900, I was like, you got to get 1900, and then and then you can study for your finals, then you can do everything else, but you got to get 1900. And then I got it, and then I was like, great, this is awesome. Like, let me do my schoolwork, let me go to lab, let me like study chess every day. Like, I can finally
Right.
study again because I like got this thing that I wanted to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like a weird like I don't know if anyone else has that.
No, I think lots of people have that.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't made it in time, you'd have just not studied for your finals.
Yeah, there was a quarter. So, okay, I do want to correct this. I've been playing for 2 years. I've been playing chess for 2 years.
Okay.
But the first year, I didn't play any like OTB or like serious games like that. But I didn't just like get 1900 in a year. So,
Okay. 2 years.
yeah.
You started playing OTB in the summer of 2024.
Yes. Yeah. I played I played like one OTB event like at the very beginning of the summer, and that was not serious. But like towards the end of the summer, I think is when I started going. When I like met Hayden, and like he was going pretty regularly, and that's what like encouraged me to come out of my like social anxiety bubble and like go over the board actually. So yeah, so that's that. There was a quarter like when I first started playing Blitz online, where it got really unhealthy for me, and I grew up playing video games and like kind of an addictive, obsessive personality. So I think I transferred that over to chess as like a video game, and I was playing like 35, like 40 hours a week of Blitz, and that really like messed with my grades and like my work. I stopped going into lab, and it was pretty bad.
Okay.
So
Cool. I mean, not
yeah.
cool, but cool.
Yeah.
Cool to understand.
Yeah.
That's clear. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, we've got hands raised in chat, so that's happened to others before.
Yeah.
Okay, so long term, it would eventually be good if you didn't judge yourself too harshly for not, always having the right answer, not always winning a game, not always playing nice moves. Like long term, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, we're going to live with your high standards, which you tried to dispute at the beginning of this session, but which I'm going to say in theory are probably there. So right now you have your high standards, and I think partly it's like an aging process that allows people to chill some of that competitiveness and judging themselves and trying to be super good. So we'll let that ride for a little bit. What we're going to want to do is come up with a plan for like studying, so your studying is enjoyable and so it matches like the level that you're aiming for, and also this thing that you mentioned about you like it to be all like laid out and it's all there and kind of like a textbook and it's thorough and all that. So I think for the quality of chess play that you want to aim for, which is basically a mastery, what we're going to have to do is go opening by opening and get good at different openings and all their structures and stuff. So we are going to leave areas of weakness. Okay. But we have a plan of sort of going through them, right? So for example, you're first going to get good at the Najdorf Sicilian. Then you're going to get good at a second Sicilian, right? Then you'll move on to either the French defense or e4 or e5,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're going to get good at one of these openings for 4 months.
Okay.
And then you'll go on with the next.
Okay.
And so you're going to go for like a pretty high level of mastery in each one before moving on to the next one, because that's what you like and that's what's going to help you to eventually become a master, right? Like if you were satisfied to be like an OTB 1800, it might be enough to just get really good at one opening with white and one opening with black. Well, one against d4, one against e4, obviously.
Yeah.
And for example, you might never need to know how to play opposite side castling positions in open Sicilians, and you could get to 1800 without ever getting good at that. Fine, it's possible. But if you want to become a master nowadays with how good, I think the level of chess knowledge has gone up and things are really competitive, you're going to want to have a little more breadth than that. So we're just going to start, I would suggest you just start shooting for that from now, from the get-go. And so I would say like next up would probably be like Najdorf. We can like call these like units, right? Unit 1 is going to be Najdorf. Unit 2, do you want to get any better at the Grunfeld or replace the Grunfeld with something else?
I do want to. I just like I don't know if it doesn't suit my style or I picked it because this like guy 2 years ago, I asked him like what he plays against d4, and he was like, I play the Grunfeld, but it's like really theory heavy, and so I wouldn't recommend it to someone at your level. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get really good at that then. And so I did, and I like memorized a bunch of lines, but I never like fell in love with it the way that I fell in love with the Catalan. I like fell in love with the Averbach, and like it just hasn't happened for me with Najdorf or with like any black opening, and I don't know why.
Is Averbach a line for white against the King's Indian?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's the bishop e2, bishop g5,
Bishop E2,
like
Bishop G5, yeah.
yeah.
Just making sure because I think Averbach's contributed so much to chess. There's probably other variations,
Oh,
but I was
yeah.
guessing it was that one. But I just wanted to make sure I knew.
Okay. Yeah,
'Cause, yeah,
fair.
that guy. I mean, I think he's, like I've got all his endgame books here. He was like an incredible contributor to chess culture.
Okay.
Okay, so Najdorf. Okay, but if you've been playing the Grunfeld for 2 years, it's time to move on. Even though the Grunfeld is an A plus opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so after you study the Najdorf, and I do think the Grunfeld is also a good fit for you, by the way.
Okay.
But so be it. We'll move on and we'll learn another one. Is there anything in your heart, or should I pick something for you?
You can pick something. I will never on my own fall in love with an opening. Like it's always like I saw an Averbach game. So I saw a game by him in the Averbach, and that's what made me like love it. And then I played an over the board game that like followed it at least for a little bit, and I felt like so cool. And then the Catalan, I think I like saw someone this YouTube channel recommending it, and so like I fell in love with it because like he like showed all these like tactics and like cool like and then like the pressure down the diagonal, and I was like, wow, like nothing has ever made me feel like this like with chess before. So I need something like that. So if you can, if there's anything that you love particularly,
Yeah.
you can like share with me.
Yeah,
That'd be
I love it.
great.
Nothing's ever made me feel like this before. Perfect. Okay, so next up, you'll learn the Benoni.
Okay.
And the Benoni is not recommended as a forever solution. Like this is several tiers below the Grunfeld. But this is an opening which will suit you. You will love and hate it. Okay? The name
Awesome.
Benoni literally means son of sorrow. And it's the best named of all chess openings, perhaps, because it is so much suffering and sorrow. You will be so sad that the opening doesn't quite work. The more you love it, the more tragic it is that it doesn't quite work.
Oh.
So I'm warning you in advance because what you don't want to do is play it for too many years. That hurt my chess career. I played it for too long. Although I did still make NM, which is your goal. So, I mean, it wouldn't keep you from making NM. But you shouldn't plan to play it forever. But I think it is something that will tap into your passion and your inspiration. It will make you have moments where you're like, I've never felt this way before, as you get counterplay with your queenside pawn majority in an endgame. So I think it'll do good things for you. And I basically believe you kind of need to learn almost everything. So let's learn it. Okay. Ultimately, you're going to need to learn the Queen's Gambit, but we're going to wait longer because you're not going to like it.
Okay.
I already know from what you said about
No,
the
don't say
exchange
that to
Carl.
me.
What's that?
Don't say that to me. Don't prime me negatively. I'll like it. I'll make
You'll
myself
like
like
it
it.
eventually when you're ready for it. But like if I just told
Okay.
you like now you should play 6 months of Queen's Gambits with white and black, I don't think you would be
Enjoy
ready to
chess.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a guess. And
Okay.
again, I'm occasionally wrong about things. So, but basically, I think you should study the Benoni with a promise to yourself that you will move on from it.
All right. This is a time limit
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. And then you're going to play 1e4.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll study that for 3 or 4 months.
You know what is cool? When I've been like trying to study the Nine Dwarf, and there was like a moment that made my heart flutter with one specific line. I think it was in Bishop G5, Knight BD7, and then like H6 B5, H6 G5. Like I don't know if you know that line,
Yeah.
but Danya recommends it. Yeah. So there was like in some lines there, there's just like these crazy sacks on uh G3 or like F2 or like stuff like that, and I was like, oh, I understand why people play E4 openings and like do this like insane stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've missed out on a lot of this. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So E4, I'm still thinking about where you should start there. You're going to have to learn one defense at a time and just spitball it against the others, or I don't know if that's a word. You're just going to have to improvise against against the other defenses. You'll know something about the Caro from having played the Caro, and by then you'll know something about the Sicilian from having played the Sicilian as black, right? So the first thing that you should study when you switch to E4 should be either a line against the French or a line in E4, E5, right? It should just be one or the other of those. And did you ever go through a phase of playing the Italian opening?
No, I've never played E4 in my life.
Yeah.
Never pushed my E-pawn.
And as black, you've never played E4, E5?
Nope, never.
Okay. Yeah. See, like most people who start out as kids will have had some period in their life where they played the sort of like kid variations of the Italian, like symmetrical knight c3, knight c6, knight d5, knight d4, trading stuff like that. But you have a different, as an adult learner, sort of, you have a different trajectory. So that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it might not be bad to learn like the old style Italians first.
Okay. I will say, because I read a lot of books, and my roommate got me the Kasparov's, like my great predecessors, for my birthday. So like all of those like old timey books, they just have like E4, E5 games in the beginning. So I like know a little bit about them and like Joko piano and stuff like that, but I've never like played it or like done it myself.
Yeah, this 2 knights with d4 or knight g5. So basically, first you're going to learn the lines where white tries to play something aggressive like d4 or c3, d4 or knight g5. You're not going to start off with like d3, c3, knight d2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The as they're sometimes called gioco pianissimo versus gioco piano, but like the lines where there's no early action. First, you're going to go through the stuff that some people say is a little played out, but it's just going to give you a little bit of that gambit feeling, that gambit edge. Let me fix this word here. When I said Benko, I meant Evans. Okay. Then you would learn a line against the French. You would hate the exchange variation. No, I'm not going to prime you negatively. Your first choice would not be the exchange variation of the French.
All right.
Advanced French, then Ruy Lopez. And then you could learn how to play E5 as black. Something like this would make sense. And then another defense to d4. Next would be Nimzo Quid. That one will be good too. Nimzo Quid is like it's like a transition between the Indian openings and the Queen's Gambit openings. You see what I mean? Like it's partly more imbalanced, partly more exciting and sharp, but it's also black. There are lots of variations where black is following up with d5 and c5 after positioning one or two pieces, and you're starting to get Queen's Gambit structures as well. It's just a little more exciting. Honestly, it's a little bit harder than learning the Queen's Gambit. So, if a few months down the road you're like, I don't need imbalances, I'm like happy to maneuver for a long time without a clear plan, then you could revise the order and learn the Queen's Gambit first, which would be a little bit easier. But right now, with where you are today, this is an order that makes sense to me. And then, then eventually you're learning the French as black. The Queen's Gambit declined as black. Semi-Slav and Orthodox. And then you're coming back around and playing the English as white. And then a new repertoire for d4 as white, etc. You'll come back around and do those things. And yeah, it's going to be 3 to 4 months per unit, right? That sounds like a textbook.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and so basically, the bulk of your like strategic learning and stuff like that is going to be within the context of a unit, so that you get deeper with everything, right? So like, basically, like while you're in the Najdorf, you're studying master games from the Najdorf, right? And you can look at some games from as old as Bobby Fischer or Miguel Najdorf himself if you want, but you can also look at like really modern games in the Najdorf. And you don't need to memorize much theory. Like when you wanted to prove the thing about the Grunfeld, you started off with theory, and I think that may have slightly gotten in the way of you having like the full emotional connection with the Grunfeld, because
Definitely.
you were playing other people's moves, other people's ideas. There's like a certain amount of like regurgitating versus like, here's my idea and like, let me see if my idea works, and then revising your idea to a better version of the idea through feedback and so forth. So I think that may have like cut into like the optimal process for you to feel connected to your opening and have passion for it. So I'll just tell you right now, like straight up about the Najdorf, which is the first thing you've already started on. People all the time ask me like, can I play the Najdorf? It's so much theory, blah, blah, blah. And I say, you can play the Najdorf without theory, basically. I've played the Najdorf my whole life, basically without theory, basically without any opening theory. And I put down like basically all the Najdorf lines that I know. And I was like, yeah, this is an under 1800 repertoire. This is not even an over 1800 repertoire when I classified it on the Chess Dojo training program. So you can play the most theory heavy openings without theory, certainly up to an IM level, from my own experience. So the focus is going to be on like learning some deep stuff, right? So you're going to like play through a game and try and learn something deeply from it, or find a couple games in the same variation. And when we say Najdorf, of course, white has like 15 moves on move 6 against the Najdorf. Now people play A3, Queen D3, A4, H3, all these moves, right? Rook G1, I don't know if you've seen that. I think they actually call it the freak attack, but it's like a playable move. Rook G1, the idea is G4, G5. Let's put the Najdorf on the board, shall we, folks?
I didn't know about any of this.
So I'm going to turn off my profile for a second, and we're going to put the Najdorf on the board. Okay, rook g1. The thing about rook g1 is this is already just a logical move. The idea is to play g4, g5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why won't it let me draw an arrow? Who knows? Let's try again. Nope, no arrows. Okay, anyway. G4, G5. Hopefully folks know the coordinates. Well, you can see which pawn the rook's behind, right, folks? The rook's trying to push that pawn. So basically in the Najdorf, there's a fight over the e4 and d5 squares at the beginning of the game. And so g4, g5 is logical for white, trying to make it easier to control those two squares by kicking black's best and only well-placed piece off of those squares. Just like for black, there's the plan of b5, b4 on the other side, kicking white's knight off of e4 and d5. So rook g1 is like perfectly logical. And when you think that, you know, people came up with the English attack, which is like f3, g4, right? And then they came up with, well, what if we played h3, g4 so that if we need to, we can put our f pawn in the center too? Anushka's like, yeah, now you're talking. I want my f pawn on f4 too. But once you can play h3 or f3 as main lines, followed by g4, why not rook g1? For all you know, that's like a better tempo once your g pawn gets going than another pawn on the third rank. Is it committal? Can we not castle kingside now? Yeah, you know. But okay, so there's so many possible moves against the Najdorf. So one thing I want to say is, while studying the Najdorf, it might make sense to look at a bunch of games within a sub-variation of the Najdorf at a particular time, right? Or play a bunch of games in a sub-variation, right? So if you have some, you know, if you're sparring with somebody, right? Like if you're playing like several games with a friend or an acquaintance, right? You can choose to play the same variation several times in a row and try and like deepen your understanding, right? So you could play a certain line like here. E5, knight f3, queen c7. Right. So okay, well, let's actually do something else. Let's go knight c6, bishop c4, bishop e6. A question that you could investigate is like, what do I think of this pawn structure if white trades on e6? That's the kind of topic of inquiry, right? And then you need to go out and try and answer that question like it's a scientific question, right? So try different approaches with white and with black. After that kind of trade on e6, find out, you know, is the pawn on e6 good for covering these weaknesses on d5 or f5? Or does it hurt black's overall flexibility? Does white have ways to attack the d6 or e6 pawns? Does black have counterplay on the f file? Any of those things would be hypotheses, right? Sometimes we think about them as like chess principles. We're like, oh yeah, somebody told me this is good because your pawn covers these weaknesses. Or it's good because you've got counterplay on the f file. But anything like that, it's like a hypothesis. Like, yes, I see black has the half open f file. Is it useful in this position, and how does one use it? And then you have to go out and sort of like test it and deepen your knowledge of it.
It's like peer review.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, and you so it's a mix of, you would like look up games that have been played in this position by 2700s, play through their games, see if you can pick up some ideas. You don't necessarily have to understand everything, right? But you try to get somewhat into it. And then some playing your own games as well. And then ideally, you're finding people you can argue with. This is a very important component of sparring for anyone out there who's newer to sparring. It's one of the pillars of the Dojo training program. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, when you're sparring, you really want to ideally spar with somebody who will argue with you about the positions in the games afterwards, right? Where when you say like, oh, I thought like this position was good for me, they'll say, no, what are you talking about? Like, I was like killing you, you know, you just got lucky because of this tactic I missed later on. And you need to then argue back and forth, you know, and be like, well, let's play the position again, you know, and someone who will share their ideas freely, but also stand up for their ideas, because that's the only way to strengthen your ideas and theirs, is to really argue for each other's ideas.
That's a good point. I don't think I do that with anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an important piece. Um, so there's going to be one other kind of work that you have to do in addition to this. Well, sorry. There's a couple other things you have to do. One is you have to play games, right? And the other
Yeah.
is you have to work on calculation.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we could talk about calculation in a separate lesson, probably
Okay.
versus today. But we could have another lesson where I ask you what you do currently for your calculation, and we sort of figure out like a plan for continually improving your calculation abilities. But that's like absolutely critical for deciding who's winning or losing, right? And then playing games, of course, so that you're constantly integrating stuff you study into your actual thought process.
Hmm.
There's no replacement for playing. Like there's hard limits for how good you can get or any improvement you can make without actually playing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get better just by playing, even without studying or learning. Although normally most people have to do some reflection at some point to draw lessons from playing. But there are people who just play millions of games and somehow like their brain sort of integrates the stuff and they start to get good.
Yeah. I had a psychological question for you
Mm-hmm.
also. The way that I do these exercises, like I've been doing the Polgar mates, just like in the mornings. And when I was doing it like last quarter, it was really fun because I hadn't done any kind of puzzles or anything in a really long time. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be really bad at seeing anything, but I'm just gonna like give myself grace and just do my best. And so I started and I was pretty bad. And then like every time I would do it, I would get a little bit better. And I would notice that I was getting a little bit better and things were getting a little bit easier. And then I'd take like a little break, come back, and like get a little bit better. And like I sometimes I would do it like I'd FaceTime Hayden and like we'd do it at the same time. And like some puzzles I would get faster than him. I'd be like, wow, like that's like that makes me feel great about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then like as time went on, it would be like because the progress made me feel so good. If there was a day where I felt like, oh, I'm not seeing these as fast as I was like 2 days ago, like what's happening to me, or like I'm not like Hayden's getting every single one faster than me now. Like what's wrong with me? Even though like I shouldn't feel bad about that at all, and I should just like let myself learn.
Mm-hmm.
It like ruins the experience of the thing. Like it ruined my breakfast because I was like upset.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
understand. Somebody in my chat already maybe 30 to 60 minutes ago mentioned like everybody has better and worse days, right? Could be how you slept last night or what you ate or whatever, but like we always have some times where our sharpness fluctuates. So you
Hmm.
have to be able to take a certain amount of fluctuation in stride and just understand there's like variation in
Yeah.
everything, right? Um, you show up to a tournament. Sometimes you'll play a little bit better or a little bit worse. Even if somebody didn't do anything to actually improve or get worse, if you just took me and dropped me in 3 different tournaments and one of them was in one city and one was in another, or one was, after I'd been doing, more working out or less working out or exercise or whatever, there would be some fluctuations.
Yeah.
Um, so some amount of fluctuation you have to accept. Um, there's no way around it. It's just going to be there. You can torture yourself about it, or you can just understand it's like a normal part of everything. Um,
Yeah. I think that's psychologically difficult for me, but I'll work on it.
yeah. Another thing is like in theory the puzzles are getting harder, right? So if you do well on page 10 of a book, page 15 might have something that's more challenging for you.
Yeah.
So it's normal that that as we progress, we are going to bump into repeated obstacles, right? What's interesting is how many of those obstacles do you manage to overcome. Um, Something that sometimes helped me with things where that involve a little bit of psychological suffering for me is to recognize them when I'm thinking about the thing like you're doing now, and then adopt goals around facing those challenges or obstacles, right? So like, oh, the next time I get stuck on some problems, I know this is an opportunity for me to overcome something new, or this is like the real learning, or this is what I've been waiting for, is this like part here. So for example, like what you said about yourself, I tended to collapse in bad positions and I had like a very low percentage, I thought, of swindles or like savings or my opponent blundering when they're winning, which everybody's always talking about. Oh, blundering when you're winning, blundering when you're winning. I'm like, why does nobody blunder when they're winning against me, right? Like,
Yeah.
where's my one free point every 20 games or whatever, right? Like, and it has something to do with what resistance do I apply and in what way, right? And am I giving up or whatever, right? So I recognize that I play worse in positions where I'm like really feeling like my position's much worse. I have confidence in myself, but I'm like, this position's too bad. Like, I can't even work with this position,
Yeah.
So then I set myself like a goal. I'm like going to a tournament, and what am I trying to work on at that tournament? My goal at that tournament is to like play better when I get bad positions. So then I'm like playing along. I'm in a good position, whatever. I'm just playing, no chance to work on my goal. And then finally I get a bad position. Yes, now's my moment. Now's my moment. I can actually, see if I'm making any progress on what I'm trying to make progress on. So just with that reframing, the thing that like I hate or dread or worry about, or that's my like performance problem, is becoming like an opportunity, right? It's sort of like reframed, and I have a different attitude towards that moment, and that has often helped me with things.
It's really smart. I'll do that now.
Speaking of which, every time I go to a tournament, I have at least one goal, sometimes two, occasionally three, maximum three, but usually one or two goals. Most often two. And I think that's very important. And for me, they're always sort of process-oriented goals. They're not like my goal is to make 3.5 out of 4, or my goal is to win the tournament or something like that. No, my goal is always to win every game, but I don't even list that as a goal. But the goals are process-oriented. Like, I would like to practice the Sicilian, right? Or I want to watch my time management and make sure that I still have 10 minutes left at move 30, because I know I still have a couple little calculations left to do by that point. Or so it could change from different things, and it should change over time. But if I always have a process-oriented goal, that also helps me to always stay focused during a tournament and always make use of my time playing. So if you have a result-oriented goal, then once you're not making your result, how does it motivate or help you, or what do you keep doing with the remaining games in the tournament? But if you've got a process-oriented goal, that can always keep you engaged and focused no matter what direction your tournament goes. So that's an important thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. I also, the tournament that I like feel like I played my best in, that was after a quarter of like over the board tournaments where I was like losing to 1100 rated 9-year-olds, just because like I wasn't used to playing over the board and I didn't know how to, and so I was like, okay, your goal is to not blunder any pieces in like one move, and that's your only goal.
Yeah.
And then I played great because I wasn't like
sit
stressed
down
about.
And you like focus on not blundering your pieces.
Yeah.
And you're involved in your game, right? And you're focused.
Yeah.
And then other good things can come. So to me, that's a training program. Let's change this 3 or 4 months to just 3 months.
Okay. I'll try to.
I mean,
I'm always going to try to do it faster.
Yeah.
So you might as well make it as long as you want.
You're fast. But you're going to push yourself. I'll push you too. So let's say 3 months to learn the Najdorf.
All right.
How long is this going to take if it's 3 months per big number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 24 months.
24.
2 years to learn like 50 to 60% of chess.
Awesome.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple openings that aren't on this list. Maybe you're like, I should already be a master by then, but you might be. You might make master before you master all of these different openings, right? But it'll be working in that direction. I think that's a reasonable pace. for you. For anyone else out there, I would probably recommend, like on average, I would recommend 4 to 6 months per thing on here if I didn't know the person. But for Anushka, 3 months is probably correct. And she'll probably do some of them in 2.5 months.
Okay, well, now I'm stressed. Now I have to. All right. No, I'll do it.
Yes.
I'll do it well.
It's not stress. I think you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy the Nightorf. You're going to enjoy the Benoni.
Yeah.
And you're going to enjoy playing old gambits. Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be wild. And then we'll start pulling it back and getting a little bit more into like top tier positional openings. But first, like, I think that you are better than you realize with chaos and tactics. So we're going to get into that, and it's going to like force you also to like get better at calculation by playing really these wild openings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important. And then you can come around and do more positional openings again.
Okay.
Yeah, Niels is saying I started at 700chess.com and I'm now 1800 a year later. Can you apply the same principle? Probably. I haven't played through your games, Niels, so I don't know like what the best order is for you, and I don't know what makes you tick. Like there's some people I would tell them like learn by starting from the end game, like start with rook and pawn endings and slowly build from there. The approach could be very different for everyone, but if you've made that much progress in a year, it is plausible for you to try to tackle one of these openings every 3 months. Yeah.
Also, good job with your chess.
Yeah, that's super. Chess Gone Mad, who's a very strong player, by the way, says, I gave myself 6 months for the Nightorf. Yeah, that's more typical. Chess Gone Mad. Nightorf's a big opening. But
yeah,
I think Anushka's in a hurry, so we're gonna play into that. Like people can tell you that like there's things about your personality that are problems or that are like better or worse, like, oh, you're too hard on yourself or you're too this or that. But you can't always just change everything about your personality, right? Like I could say don't be as hard on yourself and just enjoy the process and stuff like that. But I think for different people, it also makes sense to harness their personality characteristics, because most of those characteristics are good and bad, right? Or have advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
So I'm like a very not pushy person, if you've ever seen me give a lesson to somebody else. But I feel like this is appropriate for you.
Great. I love to hear it.
Okay. Of course, I can share this. I can send you this. You've probably already read it just now. Anything else you want from me today?
Just to start, just because like I think it might help me to like take a break from Polgar mates. I know like Perfect Your Chess is recommended, Creative Chess is recommended. Do you have any like calculation books that you would recommend? I might try doing that in the mornings instead.
Perfect Your Chess is kind of like at a 2300 FIDE level, I think.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
So I probably wouldn't start there. You have some calculation skills, but it's uneven, which is one of the reasons why you probably have like better and worse days also, is there's probably some tactics that you're just more familiar with and others where you've got holes, which is also makes sense for somebody who's learned very fast instead of like gradually over years and years, What other book do you have?
I don't have any. I just like find them all online and I pirate them. The tactics books, I've been like, I tried a little bit of the tactics from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read like the first bit of that and like I got to like the deflection chapter and then just the first one. And then I like moved on to reassess your chess because I was like, oh, I'll put it on a rotation or something. And then my friend Sack Checkmate, who's like he also streams, he recommended this other tactics book. So I like started reading that one too. But I just like, I don't know. They don't like, I can read Reassess Your Chess and I like enjoy it. The tactics books, sometimes I have to like make myself read them.
Okay. Do you do tactics online?
No.
No.
I know.
No,
I used to do them a lot, but yeah, not anymore.
there's lots of people who just do like millions of those. I was just curious.
Yeah. That's why I think that I'm really weak in calculation and like tactically because like I don't do any of that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me look here and give you a recommendation for the book.
I've tried, yeah, I've done chess tempo, I've done woodpecker. Um, I've done it all. I've done the whole CT Art 4.0 app. I did that with Hayden.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like I've done a lot of tactics in the past. I got like my chess.com like puzzles rating to like 3,000, and that was like a goal. And once I hit it, I never did another chess.com puzzle again because I
Mm.
was like, I mean, I did. I like it's at 2,800 now, but I just like wasn't interested.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think chess tactics from scratch is a fine one to keep working with,
Okay.
unless there was anything you didn't like about it.
No, I think I guess I haven't read it in a while because now I'm on Silman, but I'll go
Yeah.
back to it. Yeah.
Um. Yeah, I think chess tactics from scratch, and then yeah, see, the thing is, like, it might be fun for you to try and solve tactical positions from your own games. I'm thinking could be like fun. Uh, you would need like a little bit of help, like someone sort of like setting up the positions for you, because like if you sort of set up which positions are tactical, you sort of maybe already know the answers, but
Hmm.
someone would have to sort of like go through your games and pull out moments for you. But I feel like your tactics are actually like a bit uneven with like blind spots and strong points. So you actually still need to fill in some patterns that you don't know. Um, which honestly is something which online tactics trainers are not bad at, just by like giving you millions of tactics. Do you know how on chess.com you can see which themes you're better or worse at
I didn't know about seeing which ones you're better or worse at.
on their
No.
tactics trainer? Okay,
Yeah.
so let me see if that's still the case. Let me go to puzzles. Let me confirm that's still true. But basically all the puzzles in chess.com's database have been tagged by users with themes.
Okay.
So that, what am I trying to do? Puzzles. Okay. So I want to see like my stats on puzzles. There we go. Stats. Okay, so puzzles. Recent puzzles. No, I want to see by theme. See if that's still possible to see. There used to be a thing, it would like show you like for each like tactical category how good or bad you were at it.
Hmm. Date, ID, rating, moves, target, average time, my time, outcome. Hmm.
That's the point
Yeah.
of it's the point of them being all tagged, is that you can. Does insights
Yeah.
tell me something about it? No, insights is trying to tell me about my games, huh? No, tactics.
Chosen custom?
Okay,
Does it?
tactics. Here we go. I found something.
No. Okay.
Oh no, this is all from my games, isn't it?
I wonder if there's an aim chess thing. Insights.
Huh. Okay. I'll have to look for it, but um it's possible. Basically on chess.com it always used to be possible you could do a bunch of tactics, then look and it would show you which tactics you score 90% versus 50% versus 20%.
Hmm.
I can go to custom puzzles. Okay, thank you, Door. Let's try that. So puzzles, custom puzzles.
Custom only shows me the custom puzzles that I've done.
All
Custom
right.
puzzles from the left tab. You see your score for everything.
Oh yeah, look at this. So I'll send you the link here in Discord. Actually,
Oh,
drop link in Discord.
I think I got it. I
You
think
got it.
I'm
It's
at the
like
page.
puzzle
Yeah.
slash learning, I think. Um,
Yeah.
and so here I can see it says select theme, but it says my score on the right, and I can look and see that I've got 54% on average, 0% on advanced checkmates, 64% on the castled king, 61% on back ranks. How could I have 61% on back rank mates? But you can see different percentages, right? From like 0 to 60 to 80, etc. On these different tactics. So then you could specifically select themes, right? So I could... Oh, it says 0% on things where I have no attempts yet. 0 out of
Yeah.
0%. But anyway, you could pick something. So I could pick something where I've got like maybe not a great percentage, like 57% doesn't seem great, right? So I could click on that, and then I can click start. And it'll give me puzzles on the theme where I've got like a lower score. So I think if you do some puzzle training and then so that it can give you actually, so you can see the scores. You have to first do some just general puzzles. Then, or maybe you've done enough already. Then you go to like your percent score by theme and pick out some ones where you've got lower scores and try those.
Okay. That's a thing I can do. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm like selecting, there's quite a few where my percentage is like low. So I'm just clicking everything.
So you click some of those and then do some puzzles there, and that'll fill in some gaps probably.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think. And then, yeah, chess tactics from scratch is good. Or if you wanted to do something on Chessable, there's something called the Checkmate Patterns Manual, which I've heard highly recommended. I haven't done it myself. And then there's an endgame studies course by Kostya, which is a lot of calculation. So if you want to get better at endgame calculation, that could be interesting. I think a lot of times endgames are associated with positional players because positional players are more likely to play a lot of endgames, right? Because they're not sacking rooks and deciding the game in the middle game.
Yeah.
But once you're in an endgame, it's actually very calculation heavy part of the game.
So. I do like endgame calculation. Like I feel like endgames is the one thing that you don't have to like make me work on. I'll just like do it on my own.
Yeah. So yeah, after chess tactics from scratch and some online working on themes where you've got lower percent scores, maybe next up could be either the Checkmate Patterns Manual or the Endgame Studies.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
This was really helpful.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Happy to do it. Yeah. Have a great day. And I'll send you a couple notes maybe. And yeah. And good luck with your studies.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Yeah. Definitely let me know if this plan doesn't feel inspiring after a week.
I will.
That would be bad. Because we should definitely, in all training, we should lean into inspiring versus burnout, right? Very, very important to calibrate that correctly.
Okay. I'll let you know. I feel like I already feel inspired. I'm like excited again about the Najdorf.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna show you an inspiring game in the Najdorf if you want.
Oh, that'd be great, actually.
You want to see one game? Because I remember you mentioned that's what got you excited about the Averbach, right? Was you saw a game and you're like, oh yeah.
Yes.
So let me show you a game. Today we recorded a video this morning with Jesse Kostya and Sam Shankland, where we went over my best games.
Shankland. Oh, okay.
We've done these podcasts about like the best games of, the romantic era, the modern era, all time, stuff like that. And now we're doing a thing where we're going to do like Kostya's best games, David's best games, Jesse's best games. So we have to bring in a guest to rank them. And
that's cool.
Here's a Najdorf game.
So thank you, Jola, for the raid. It's like show and tell.
Yeah. So I'm going to fix my screen share a little bit or maybe, should I grab it? Yeah, I can just grab it easily. Our site is well designed to copy stuff. I'll just grab it and move it into our classroom.
Okay.
That'll be easiest, I guess. So you can Sit there, add a game. All right. Oops. Okay. That should be good enough. All right. So here's one of the games.
Okay.
Kostya said it's the best game because if you just say the players' last names, this game is David Pruess. Because White's last name is David. The only time I've played somebody whose last name was David. Okay. So in Najdorf positions where black plays e5, the d5 square is very important. Right? And so once I played e5, you saw white switch the bishop that had already developed on e3 to g5.
Yeah.
Right? Sort of like in a Sveshnikov to remove the defender of the e4 and d5 squares. So I prepare to replace it with this knight, but that means this bishop can't come out the normal way to e6. So then they play a4 to prevent b5, bishop b7. And now when I play b6 to develop my bishop, this pawn on a6 and b6, they can always be a little bit weak like that. So, and now, but white's knight on f3 is terrible, right? So they're going to have to invest a lot of time getting this in touch with either of the good squares, which are d5 and f5. So I've got a lot of time. I can see this knight maneuver coming, right, from 10 million miles away. And it looks like I'm just developing, but I have like a plan in mind. So as soon as the knight arrives here and white's ready to play either knight d5 or knight f5 next move, we just get rid of our pawn first so our pieces can come out. And now suddenly you see, white's bishop was on f1. So they've been greedy or aggressive in a certain way with their positional maneuver, right? It wasn't a bunch of pawn moves grabbing space, but they tried to get a positional lock on me, and it cost time. So d5 takes. It's important to trade the bishop, even though I love the bishop pair. How do you feel about the bishop pair?
Love it. What else?
Right? Oh, man. But I have to get rid of it because it's a pawn sack, and like it's just going to be sitting at this, looking at this pawn on d5, right? Like the bishop's just not good enough here. So I trade that. Give the check. If c3, bishop takes c3 check, right? So this is part of the justification for the whole pawn sack is white's going to have to disturb their king here. But now, very important phase. What does white want to do in this position? Like the next moves are very aggressive from black, but it's basically prophylaxis or prophylactic thinking, right? What does white want to do? They want to move the bishop off f1 to d3 or c4 and then play king e2.
Okay.
Right? Like if you were white and you're like, oh shoot, my king's on d1, but then your opponent was like, I'm going to play king h8. You're like, okay, what am I going to do with my chance, right? So this bishop wants to come out and then the king go to e2. And then white would be up a pawn and they'd have a real game. Okay, so I take away the d3 square from the bishop. Then I take away the c4 square from the bishop.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's how I came up with these moves, was from that kind of thought process. And we've got prophylaxis in the chat. Hey, Professor. Thank you for joining us at the right moment. So b5, and that stops bishop c4. And the tactical justification is if white takes a bunch of times, black has rook a1 check, rook takes h1. But b5 is the kind of move that you might never look at because it looks like you can't do it, and you're thinking of the C or D files here. Like first thoughts might be rook c8 and rook d8. I'm trying to break through on the C or D files. But if you think in terms of, oh, like I want to stop white from bringing out that bishop, then it's not very hard to calculate that b5 is good. So white plays g4 to let the bishop out another way. So now the plan is bishop g2, king e2. And now black plays normal moves. Rook c8, c3. And this position's very hard to calculate, so we won't go through the variations. But this is the thematic move, now breaking open the D file with a sacrifice of either piece. And queen d6. And the king starts running away. Note that the king can't castle, and it didn't go to e2 because of queen d3. Right? That's why it's on e1 instead of e2. So white's still got a long way to go to get the pieces, the rook out of h1. Here, king f1, queen d3's mate. We could mention that. So white trades it, and now that pawn is going to slow the king and rook switching places even more, right? White's about 6 moves from castling by hand, maybe. And we just go for that back rank, right, before the king can get out of the way.
This is an awesome game.
And black wins.
This game is so cool.
Yeah. So that's a Najdorf game. You know, white tried to get the positional lock, and black just says, yeah, d5. Here you go.
Wow. I want to look at this game on my own too.
Yeah.
I'll just copy this.
Right. All right. I'm going to leave you here, Anushka. I'm going to leave you here, Chad, and everybody else. I wish everybody a wonderful day. My day is going to be better if I make it to the gym before I have to pick up the kids, and I've got 1 hour left to do just that.
So. Okay. Godspeed.
Time to run. Take care, everybody. Be great. And love to everybody. Anushka, are you going to stay on? Should I raid your channel?
I'll stay on for a little bit. Yeah. I'll hang out with chat.
Awesome. So, folks, you can hang out over on Bloodqueen's channel here.
And everyone on my channel better go follow Chess Dojo right freaking now.
Otherwise, it's going to get bloody.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much again. This was really great. I really appreciate it.